Design for me is more a kind of flexible, a kind of a flexible definition, and that's the strength. If we start to make like a definition, we lose the creativity because it becomes like, you know.
Hi everybody, I'm Mario. Welcome to another episode of Design Interviews and Questions, where we interview designers and design experts from all around the world. Today I'm with a Swiss graphic designer, he's Demian Conrad. Welcome Demian, thanks to be here.
Hi, welcome to everybody. Thank you for inviting me to your great project.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I would immediately start with the initial question, which is, what made you become a designer?
So, difficult question that is going to bring me back in my youth. I come from a kind of a weird family. My parents were hippie, and so aside this kind of movement of counterculture and new way of living, I grew up and I developed my cultural backgrounds, and for sure that was quite interesting because we had the house filled up of books everywhere, a lot of DIY books, of course, garden books, make your own furniture books, and even my parents were like counterfeiting like toys. You may aware of this Enzo Mari animal puzzle toy. Then they were counterfeiting it, but in a kind of psychedelical way. So they were painting on each animal several flashy colors and then sell it to the local markets, amongst vegetables. And it was quite a funny experience. And for sure, I had like a great impact in this kind of content culture and ethical issue that belongs to this movement, anti-war, anti-green revolution, for instance, that we are finally trying to cope with. Finally, organic food is around on the supermarket and is becoming a norm. And for sure, the notion of fanzine was quite early in my childhood. We at the age of 13 and 14, we were already doing like a fanzine. You were using Xerox printers, and even when I started, that was like around 14 years old. I started to do skateboarding, and I brought to you a kind of nice image to show because it's actually like a still analog photo. And as I come from like an old stone house village, it's quite a contrast between a skate tricks and the landscape. But this I hope you can all see. That's the asset air in a mini ramp. And I'm wearing it's quite interesting. I'm wearing a kimono pants, so a kimono trousers, and it was the time where I started to do like my parents. I act Vision pants. We couldn't get Vision's streetwear clothes, so I took the kimono, the karate kimono pants. I do like a cutout cardboard typeface Vision. And then I spray it in black with, classical motorbikes painting this Vision on my left feet. And we draw a lot. When the childhood, we draw a lot because, it was part of this skateboarding community. We drew T-shirts by hand. And gently this attitude, evolved on me, and probably the moment in which I first met a real graphic designer was a little bit late, when I was 18, because my father was in his area, bought an early Macintosh 512 kilobytes. It was like the second Macintosh. And his close friend was graphic designer Chris Carpi, bought also the laser printer. It was awesome. It was super expensive. And they started to work on crazy projects. They did like books on parody on Swiss story, like changing the content of the story of William Tell and making like a kind of a parody. And I was around. I was around this kind of duo of creative doing this crazy shit of story. I mean, Chris Carpi even started to counterfeit stamps. It was the 80s. It was like a mail art movement. So he started with using Reagan stamps and then using Thatcher stamp. And then at the end, he had the brilliant idea to do autoportrait. Yes, because artists, they do autoportraits. And the police, they found him and they sued him. So they went through a long legal battle because, I mean, he was sued for counterfeit stamps. I mean, it's value, it's money, And then, fortunately, in Switzerland, we have a kind of a rule that if you are doing something for the sake of art practice, you can infringe some laws. So it could be like released from his own process. Yeah. So and then from there, I started to draw in MacDraw. Then starting to see how his friend was using PageMaker and then from then I switched to a kind of a strange journey. I wasn't straight into graphic design school. I went to what we say in German, Schriftsetzer. It's like a composer. So you just mentioned to me behind the scene a nice Weingart poster. I mean, and we use acetate to do graphic design, to do layout. So I spent like 5 of my years into a print shop, like doing, this kind of old techniques that somehow influence also my aesthetic, my vision. And I had a great teacher who was Meinrad Singenberger, who brought to me the attention to the magazine Typografische Monatsblatt, for instance, who really gave me the really good basic of, we may say, the Basel school. I say that because this is really important to me. I feel the difference between, the legacy, even in a global war, because I listen carefully to what you discuss with the other designers. For sure, we are in a global moments, but I think there's still a kind of traditions that are still somehow connected, and we in Switzerland we feel it, and I can really feel the difference between the Basel school and the Zurich school even today. So it's quite interesting. And then from then, for sure, I was like a little bit. I had enough about the production side of typography, and I wanted to go in the creative school, and I studied graphic design. And from then, that was my journey into that, and I'm still doing it. Oh my gosh, so long.
And what is design for you then? Because I mean, you started with the influence of your parents at the beginning, and that was like really creative somehow. And then you studied like typesetting, which is really strict and has to follow strict rules. So I think also the idea of what is design really changed for you somehow.
Oh my gosh, that's is even a more difficult topic because if you think back in the beginning of design, design belongs to the industry. So even Bauhaus was built upon the industry agenda, and for sure is total opposition of craftsmanship. And that's why there were all those battles between like William Morris and all the new legacy Peter Behrens. And this is a struggle moment in which design becomes like commodified. The process of creativity becomes commodified. We may say it's not anymore like a DIY shareable open source knowledge, it becomes more you need a fucking title. And that it sucks me because there are many great designers who have any kind of title and they're doing great stuff. Why you really need to be undergoing a school. So somehow, to me, design becomes like a commodity. You study design is a tool to make industrial products nice. That was the beginning. And later by later, this kind of attitude becomes broader. I mean, a lot of designers try to they were not comfortable in that situation. I mean, I can mention for sure the most influent in the 80s was and 90s was Ettore Sottsass, who said, I mean, he put a bended leg in a table just to annoy the producer, and the producer took it and make money out of it. But it was a provocation. It was a kind of, let's just hack the system and see. I don't want to be just part of the engrenage, part of this machinery. And for sure, there are a lot of designers push the topic of what is design broader, larger. I think even Dieter Rams, I mean, he started to work on the fact that must be also sustainable. It's not only about the beauty. It's not only about making functional or making the message passing through. There are other important elements that belongs to the process of designing, and I think that now it's getting even bigger. I mean, and probably for me, if I have to recap that, is more design for me is more a kind of flexible, a kind of a flexible definition, and that's the strength. If we start to make like a definition, we lose the creativity because it becomes like yeah, for sure we can go back to a kind of systematic approach into defining analysis, research, definition of the problem, analysis, research analysis, then creativity, test, and production. But even in that, I think if you fix it, then you lose it, the potentiality of design. That is an attitude. It is probably more of an attitude of fixing problems and finding solutions. And in regarding to my graphic design practice, I may consider myself more of a gestalter. I like this German word. I mean, I would say that I don't feel myself as a graphic designer. I would paraphrase Bruce Mao, who said, just fuck the graphic and keep just designer, in a famous article in Wire magazine. I mean, it's like just keep designer and Gestaltung. I like the Gestaltung is like in German is a bit more broader. It's a bit more, as I consider myself more a humanistic humanistic designer. I think that's helped me to be a bit more horizontal and not verticalized, hyper specialized.
So you create a kind of visual definitions. Is that what you create as a designer?
I mean, somehow we are working with images, isn't it? And then we are working with systems as well. And so probably we're trying to create our own languages and definition and try to instill inside of these aesthetical languages some values. That's for sure. I mean, it's part of refining your craft or your mastery somehow, to not having just a style. I mean, what is it? It's just a style. It's just a copy.
And I mean, regarding like your projects, when you start a new project, there is always a process until the end. And are you interested in a specific part of the process, or you like all the process and like you just every time like feel free to follow the intuition?
That's a good question. I think is really. I like to think that everybody should have his own way to do it. That is part of be free in the creative process. What I can be sure that what I'm looking into that is a peculiar but also a bit hedonistic, I may say. I'm for sure looking for joy. I like to be joyful. So I'm looking really in the process to find the most joyful sides and be enchanted. I think that's the beauty of we are a pretty privileged class. We have to always keep in mind that we are privileged. Even in this moment of a coronavirus around, there are people who are working outside and putting themselves in the first row and exposed to the virus, and we are working from home. We are quite of privilege, and for sure I keep that in mind. But I also like the fact that creativity has this element of pleasure, of enchantment, of reflection, in which you are thinking and you are like trying to elaborate something. You are trying to create something new or challenging some status quo, even in our little field of designing a poster and try to get the message through. You can push a little bit the reflection and change the way how that are made. And that side, I enjoy it a lot. For sure, there is that is more into the explorative side, the research side, that I made also part of my daily work. So I have part of my weekly work is I'm doing research. That's why this joy enchantment, now I'm trying to stretch it to make it even more interesting to myself. And for sure, I also take an important side from, especially because that is design. I make kind of strict separation between design and art. And for me, design is a service we provide to a clientele. And to me, when you have a good client, you have the potentiality to create magics. And the relationship and debate with the client or with your audience is also a really important side of all the process. And it happened to me that, a lot of big changes on my way of crafting I have to address it to some discussion I had with clients. Not with other peers, but with clients who challenge me and say, yeah, but why not that? And it's difficult because as designer we pretend to be savvy and we know everything about typography, but I don't know. I try. It's a difficult exercise. I try to be humble in that regard and say, but anyway, this money belongs to the clients. These projects belongs to the clients. The one who is gonna run with the design we are gonna produce, and it's important to be at listening their own vision. And if he's gonna challenge you, that's awesome. And then I think I make you an example. I just mentioned to you, at the moment we're working on a architectural magazine for the French side of Switzerland, and it was a competition. And we say it's more a kind of a review, technical engineer architecture, and we say let's not go into this way of pleasing the client. Let's just do something that we feel is right. And we set everything in. We decided to do something really technical and do a kind of a minimalistic challenge to say, can we do an entire magazine in one size typeface? And so we propose an entire magazine set in Universe 55, 8 points, and we won the competition. And the client was like, "Oh, that looks amazing!" And we say, "Oh my gosh, that's interesting." It's like, and now we are working on it. And even today, I just came out from a meeting with the editor in chief, and he's still pushing me look into these architects, try to see how Alvaro Siza, yes, he's a modernist, but he says also this kind of feeling that is contemporary at the time a bit, So I think that relation is super important, and is the thing that's gonna make the project vibrating, interesting, and for sure different.
And very often, I mean, Swiss design is defined like perfection, because it's really like rigid, strict, and yeah. But do you think perfection exists in design?
Okay, yes, I see what you mean about perfection. Is for me, I mean, the word perfection is a bad beast. I think I was trapped into this kind of it's a kind of disease, isn't it? It's like a kind of you think that a kind of thing should exist as a perfection, and then you are trapped into this kind of game. I think for me is a kind of dictatorial construction. No, it's kind of it's a kind of someone who is pretending that there is something that is better than another thing. But I mean, as a graphic designer, we all know that there is not a unique truth, but there are many truths and there are many solutions. A project, you can approach it in so many different ways, but it's still working. I mean, then there are different degree of enjoyment or feelings or secondary levels of content, but there are many solutions. So I wouldn't like it to be more dependent of perfection. I would like that it's a bad beast. I would like to try to avoid it. I don't know. It happens to me to encounter some of my folks at AGI and discuss about typography, and I like when I'm in a confrontation with someone who is not doing exactly what I'm doing, but completely maybe free. I mean, and that side is really appealing to me, because I really believe in the diversification of languages. I'm for organic, when we say, diversity is important. And then if you put like this perfection, you may say, it's like a religion going to Africa and saying, yeah, become Christian because we have the truth, And I think that is quite bullying. But even, I'm not against religion, please. I could maybe mention a little story about perfection in how that can frustrate you. I listened to he's an Australian Buddhist who was telling about a Buddhist monk who built a beautiful wall of red bricks in his own courtyard, and he stayed weeks and weeks, months and months. And at the end of the construction, he stared on a brick that was like slightly offset of like 3 centimeters. And he was like, oh my gosh, that's really annoying me. This little brick is like annoying. And he was torturing himself, He was like, oh my gosh, this little brick is really ugly. And then one day, a great master came around the monastery, and he met this guy polishing and cleaning the wall, and said, what are you doing? I'm trying to fix this crazy little element. It's annoying me. It's so ugly. It's torturing me. And the great master said, but stop looking to this only brick. Look at the other 20,000 bricks that he put. That are beautiful. And that's something that, for you, it is a good story to tell. Don't stay to stare the little beast, Go to see your journey. What you have accomplished so far. What are the wholeness of you as a designer. Don't look at the shitty projects you have just done. I mean, we all do. We have all our cupboards filled up of trashy worn out clients. It's okay. It's okay. Go ahead and look the beauty.
You mentioned before that for you, especially in Switzerland, the different styles from different places like Zurich, Basel, I don't know, Lausanne, for example, also Ticino, are really important. And you don't feel like to say that is a global style. Um, so you have a really conscious idea of different styles. So how do you see like contemporary design today then?
And maybe I have to just try to reframe a little bit what you mentioned, because it's important. I mean, I studied with a great designer who has kind of a strong voice, with Bruno Monguzzi. And I mean, what happens in that area of southern of Switzerland is that I mean, it's a stronger voice. There never been another stronger voice, and he was teaching, so he created a kind of puppets. You know, there is a kind of this kind of attitude towards how you fix problem in design becomes a kind of a school. You know, as it happens for a time in the new wave or whatever kind of movement, and I think that's also connected to that's my I mean I don't have scientific reasoning, but I think it's my gut feeling who is providing to this insight that there is something about proximity, you know, that is important into design. When you are part of a community and there is proximity, you are more willing to look into what the magic of other designer, what they're doing, what are the process. When you are far away, when I mean you have someone in China, even if it's amazing, but you cannot relate culturally or for proximity, is less able to impact your design sensitivity. That's what is my feeling as now today as time has passed, and I think that's why you feel also different approach. I mean, if you are I'm teaching in Geneva, and for sure in Geneva we have a great tradition of comics. And it's also we have a department that is connected to this topic, and we teach drawing and narrative comics to and for sure the design is different. We feel it. It's more Frenchy, and there is something about the Geneva ambience that is different from Basel, that is different from Zurich. And even I would take Lucerne. I mean, Lucerne is a brilliant example. You had I mean, Eric Bretbull, I admire a lot, and is belonging to a kind of lineage, beautiful. And I think that's so interesting. And I think that's our culture mode. You know, we told. I mean, Richard Dawkins launched this idea of the meme. Now it got viral, but those are memes, you know. Why you do like this kind of little solution, you know? Why this you use this kind of grid? That's culture passing through generations or trends, and I still feeling that this is quite strong in Switzerland. I don't know abroad. I mean, I listened to your last conversation, and the designer was saying yes in if you take a designer from Korea, for sure, there is something different because the typeface is different. If you discuss with a Japanese typography, I mean, we all knew the beautiful Helmut Schmidt journey to Japan and what he accomplished in trying to understand the Japan typesetting. It's a totally another culture, and I think that it probably is happening. But if I say what about the contemporary design, I think it's an awesome time. I think this global conversation is amazing. It's something that is probably enhancing ourselves. I strongly believe that. Even if I think we have also to be quite careful because we don't have to be trapped into this beautiful world that everything is working fine, and we don't see that beside the curtains of our empire there are the little the little ants working to produce our sneakers. And I think we in the recent years we're lacking a little bit of utopian visions or social agendas. That's even if we are doing stuff. Please don't take me wrong. There are a lot of initiatives that are done, but they're all separated. And that's my wish would be that this social media, this conversation we are doing, would help to aggregate this vision that are similar and make it more relevant. I mean, we are really far from the 60 movements, from this massive. I mean, in the 60s. More than 2 million of Americans, they left the cities to say, fuck the system, and let's try to build another one. It's amazing. It's a new vision. It's an utopian vision of a new society. And nowadays, I mean, the society is fucked up somehow. We know that. I mean, now we are in our own private spaces. But last year, think just about the fire in Australia. That was just so terrible. Think about the problem we have with pollution in the major Asiatic cities. It's just terrible. People are dying of cancer. Come on. And we are not waking up. No, sometimes we are. And then that's maybe for me is like yes, let's use this energy. Let's try to find a solution. Be careful not to enter in this kind of to second. We are disconnected from the reality because we are in the virtual world, so we don't care. We just stay here and we mass consumption sneakers and lipstick from home. I would be careful to not fall in that situation and always be vigilant. I mean, as designer, we have a strong power because we are leveraging art. We are leveraging media messages in order to pass through messages to a broader audience, and we have to really always be responsible of what we are able to do.
And I mean, one important role today is played by internet, and you started also in an era where internet was not present. What do you think about the impact of internet had on design?
So yes, I mean, if I think about my first step into this crazy world, I was still at school. Were the 90s, and my parents had this Macintosh. At school, we had the first modem connection. We had to dial up the machine in order to be online. It was a kind of strange feeling. Now we are constantly online, always, night and days, in the toilets, under the shower, and the doctor. We are in transportation. We're always online. And at the time, you had to log in. And there was this kind of separate world. It was like, and we were super intrigued. I mean, we spent even hours into testing the first chatting and doing crazy conversation with people around the globe. It was quite exciting, and I mean, it has completely changed the planet, and our interaction is just massive. Is massive. I mean, I recently I'm really digging into the topic of fashion because it's for me an important topic that as designer we have urgently have to address because it's the second most polluting industry in the planet. It's not possible to continue to go on with this mass fashion industry, and I was looking how this system works. I like to analyze system; it's part of my pleasure, and they're using like this superstar. I mean, Instagram becomes for fashion, it becomes the most important advertisement channel. and all this major kind of star system of people having millions of followers has become a new fucking brand system, selling just socks and slippers and sneakers, you know, and without caring about what is happening behind the curtain. What is bad? What is happening? I mean, factories are falling down and people are dying for our fucking sneakers that cost just 5 francs. Why not buying local produced shoes? You know, you can buy, you maybe pay 200 francs, but you can keep it for like 10 years. Why not? It makes much more sense if a society should be good. So in that sense, there is a big, I mean, internet is changing everything, every industry. And even in our industry is changing a lot. I mean, even the hyperconnection, the dynamic data for our work, even it will be. I mean, we are using the parametrical typefaces. What does it mean? It means that maybe what you're reading is connected to a database of information, and the shape of the font is dynamically changing in comparison to the data set, or just how design become have an instant reaction. Before we had to publish, it took several steps of fireworks in order to have an information published. Now you just click a button in your Instagram and you can impact someone, and that makes a huge impact. And I think we haven't seen yet the end of that, because as we are also experimenting, I'm teaching at Geneva, and we have like a architectural department now that are like looking into virtual reality approach into design spaces. I think we are gonna work more and more also in augmented reality. That's the future, probably. You know, not having a blocked view, but having to go through. And when this kind of virtual matter is going to be real, that useful, that's going to change completely the topic. I mean, even now in China, if you have like these social points, you cannot move. Think about our job. I mean, it's going to be already now we're working from home. That's already changed totally. I mean, we used to go having our little coffee in the machine with our chaps, and we don't have it now. It's already changed. The impact is already obvious. And I don't know. I maybe just give you this kind of example, because I'm running with my school a research project on how. The idea is mapping how creative coding is affecting the role of a graphic designer nowadays, and creative coding, of course, is starting more into the arts field and media arts field, but more and more people are coding themselves. And I have a few examples. I mean, we went to do interview with Eurostandard in Lausanne, or like using mobile phone apps in order to create iconography. It's a completely new way. That's really using what is happening in internet and on our mobile device to shaping the images of contemporary design. And even Johnston and Kingston, I mean, they showed to us an amazing book they did in residency in New York, in which the book's structure is built upon a website. So the website is a database. They use the database to fetch the information globally and collectively, and the books were done automatically. And it's amazing. I mean, look at that. Our work is a big influence now from how the internet is helping us to connect and rewire all our relationships.
And you just mentioned that you're a teacher in Geneva. So what do you think about design education?
That's a difficult topic, and I think we maybe take a little time for that. But in HEAD, I'm teaching editorial design to a class of students. There are roughly 20, and now they're working like from home. We're using Team as a tool. So if someone is there from my student, cheers to hello to everybody, and they're really great because they're undergoing this challenge now to do like this, what the school call it in an old-fashioned manner, cyber learning. That seems belongs to the 60s, but they're really brave into try to work in that challenge and to try to learn from an online discussion. And I think design education nowadays has to be much more flexible. And the problem with that the institutions are becoming even bigger. Now, I mean, I think was something that was like criticized a lot of like every school now are building superstar architectural building. I mean, even in Switzerland, we have the same problem. Now everybody is building this cathedral of school. So what happens? It's beautiful. I mean, I'm for great architecture. I love architecture. But when you do this massive infrastructure, you have to grow it, and then it becomes massive. And then what happens? That the way how you steer the boat is much more difficult. I mean, if you are, it's like surfing, guys. I mean, if you have a longboard, it's beautiful, but it takes so long to do your turn, isn't it? It's beautiful, but it takes maybe a decade in a school to do this turn. But if you have a short board, you can do tricks, you can do jumps, you can do whatever. And now the school getting so big, they cannot do those tricks anymore. So what happens in comparison to how the technology and the mass migration is affecting how the society is changing, that they're not able to keep up. They're not able to keep up with the contemporary needs. So that's my feeling. It's only my feeling, it's my perception. I can be wrong, but I have this feeling that's maybe the problem. And I think education needs to address that deeply, how they can steer quicker, how they can address contemporary problems much more faster, and probably somehow at the end of this question is like what is the purpose of design? What design should seek in the contemporary discussion? What are the main important objectives of design, and not just designing for the sake of designing and graduating students just for the sake of having students. Otherwise, we get in this twisted mechanism of producing because we need just to produce. That doesn't make sense, isn't it?
And I mean, one important and fundamental part of teaching, of course, is like to teach to young generation something that then they are able to apply in the future. So what do you think regarding like the role of the designer in the future? Because, for example, like you said that you're also experimenting with the coding into design. So this is kind of like the future, right?
So that's also, I mean, I don't have, I don't pretend to see into the future, and I can not pretend to say that what I can feel is going to be the truth. I can just speculate. That's the only thing I can do. I mean, the only future is always about speculative ideas. Can be also an inspirational narrative. And that's why I discussed before of the urgency of creating utopia. We need story, we need utopian story in order to guide us into a better situation. If we don't have those stories that are helping us, religion were amazing in doing that. And still, I'm not against religion. I think are amazing in helping us to to guide us in this chaos. I mean, we are living in a chaos. We still not know where the thing all began. I mean, in the CERN in Geneva, they're still playing around with protons, and you know, it's just crazy. You know, they're spending massive money to say what's happened before the Big Bang, and nobody knows. I mean, we don't know anything. We know maybe what we know for sure that we don't know. and I try to speculate for sure because I'm kind of a responsible adult man, and I try to understand. And for sure, maybe something that can happen that designer will be all unemployed, and we're going to go under a massive unemployment plan, and that everything is gonna be full automatized. That's why I call it my studio Automatico Studio, just to be a little bit in advance on the ideas, or just a little bit direct to have a kind of a second degree view, and that could be the case. That could be the case that we're already seeing in many different kind of elements. I mean. If you take for example, Squarespace is somehow an automatized tool. I mean, everybody can do a decent in the level of just a normal being, not design skill. I mean, what can achieve a normal person now with just a tool like Squarespace is just amazing, just crazy. The quality is super high. I mean, when I was still in the year 2000, there were like this first logo generator were really sucking. And now, I mean, there are just tools that are super great. I mean, and if you think, I mean, it's quite an obvious. I mean, I'm super fan of the thought from the 60s from Karl Gessner. He was already thinking about programs. I mean, we are designing programs. When we do a series of posters for a theater or whatever institutions, is a program. It's a program. You can codify it. And for sure, I think that automation is going to be happening for every industry. I'm really sure. And that's why, I mean, I had the chance to I think we have to address also this other kind of social agenda that is how can we survive if it's going to be full automatized. And for sure, the only way I see now is I had the chance to be part of one of, I don't know if I have it around. I was here. Sorry. I was part of this project, and I'm really happy to being a part of this project in which we designed the posters. That it was done in 2006 and was the Folk Initiative for Einbedingung Lausanne Grundeinkommen. So in English, a referendum on basic income. So giving free money to everybody as a roof of protection of society. So everybody is gonna receive like a minimum. It's not a salary. It's just the idea is not giving a salary. It's giving just the dignity of being able to survive without being like broke or in the streets or having just a roof and the basic need. Maybe that is how it's going to happen because somehow the advertising agency who will be the first probably to being automatized, they will have the budget because they're maybe running on 10 million turnover budget. They will be able to buy those new algorithms or this new artificial intelligence that will be able to automatize the thing. But then there will be the others that probably would have problem with that. So that is the dystopian vision. But then I have a good vision because I'm a positive thinker anyway. And I think we're evolving species. And we always find a solution. Also, when it sucks and when we are really in crisis times, the great thing of human being are find solution. And for sure, I think there are other the other story or the other narrative is that it is already happening now. The designer is already working towards the future, and I see around me myself people like doing all other kind of meta works, and I would say, like for instance, curator. I mean, how many designers now are becoming curators? You are a great example of that. You are creating content. And the designer is more than just a designer; he's a curator, or content creators. Many great examples are online of great designers all around the globe. They're creating content. They're creating maybe fictional poster, but they're content creators. They're trying to send out ideas. But even in our daily task as a designer. System designer. I discussed a lot with my colleague Mitch Paone, who is teaching with me at HEAD, about system design. It's honestly, I mean, we're going. I mean, he has done it. I just gave to EPFL a project. We work with them in order to help them with their own identity, and we create a banner and poster generator online. For the one, I mean, it's the second polytechnic in Switzerland, and so they can provide the design, this design facility, this design tool to their whole department. It's huge. It's like a village. So system designer will be so important. So create system for institutions or and then the institution can carry on with that. And then, I mean, that can be stretched, until process designer. I mean, even a school in Holland, in Eindhoven, had this great statement once in Milano at the Salone, mentioning designer as architect, designer as a wife, designer as as an illustrator. I mean, try to open and stretch and evolving. And I think there is a lot of going on in that, and that is really beautiful. And maybe last but not least, to me, there is something that for sure is going to always stay, even if we're going to the dystopian vision, that is the craftsman, or the craftsmanships. And I think that is something that is going to be always there. I mean, we are still looking into internet. I mean, you still be able to find everything, also from all the tools from in 19th or 1700th century. You can buy it, replica of that. So people are still interested in this stuff, and people they design by hand or stuff. And even in the contemporary scene, I see it in for instance, in ceramic. I mean, there is a huge explosion of ceramics maker, and they're producing beautiful stuff. And I'm so happy that now we can say, let's have the choice, go to buy a nice plate to a young craft designer than buying to IKEA. It makes much more sense to me. So that's the craftsmanship is going to be massive. Also, probably more niche, but an important side of our métier in crafting the design with a special touch, with using sophisticated mental ideas like humor. I mean, algorithms won't be able to reproduce humor for sure yet. So humor, sarcasm, those attitudes are really difficult to program. So I think that is where a human being they gonna have to evolve, and maybe just go back to planting some tomatoes. Who knows?
In your answers, I mean, it's really easy to feel like the importance of the role of the designer, and especially today, I mean, we are all like called to do something and to help in this moment of this global pandemic, do you think as a designers we can do something to help? Of course, not medically, but maybe in some other ways.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I mean, the first thing we can do is stay home, isn't it? I mean, just avoid to spread the virus, and even if it seems weird because we are listening to all this news from the television and the radio or in the Instagram, but for sure, I mean, technically we can help, and I think I invite everybody who have the time and the energy and the wish. I mean, graphic design can really save lives physically. I mean, if you do a wrong word labeling, I mean, someone can drink the wrong fluid and be killed. Or if you do the wrong labeling, people won't be enough sure about the order. You know, say, we have to keep the distance. But the labeling, how you design, keep distance, is fundamental. That's, if it's well designed, people they're gonna say, yeah, there is an authority behind. So I have to stay because there is danger. If it's badly designed, people they don't care. And that's for me is a more, when we say, practical, urgent point. I would say if you can be implicated on that, do it. We are working now with a doctor in Germany. Just working. It's not a fancy. It's not like this fancy project arty-farty, but it has a great background. We're like to helping the young parents to not let the kids with the smartphone, because and that's we're creating a label that goes into the birth booklet of the kids, saying, parents, be careful not put the Wi-Fi devices behind our kids. And that's, I mean, it's super important. It's design. I mean, and that's really critical. We can do a lot with design. And then I would like to finish this point maybe with some lesson from one of your colleague from Italy that is not anymore here, but for me, it was a kind of great rediscovery, because I was in touch with his own aura when I was student, because I studied in Ticino, so I had this kind of Italian aura. But I think and the name is Agi Fronzoni, and is this guy here that you see here, and he designed this maybe super known Fontana poster, and he it's quite important designer to me, because he was not only pursuing an egoistic or monetary journey, like a lot of big agencies are doing. But he was also pursuing like a self-development and a humanitarian journey. And he says something to me that is still resonating a lot to me, that the first task of a designer is designing his own life. And seems so obvious. I mean, it seems so simple, but at the time it's not, isn't it? And I think in these moments that we are here, it's like the water is freeze, the nature finally is healing himself, the sky are much more clear, the water is cleaning up, and we are here. We have maybe a bit more time, solo time, in order to reflect. I think it's an awesome time to do something for the planet, not only for the global pandemic, but for the planet itself, and say. And we know the change must start from ourselves, and redesigning our way, how we relate to things, how we relate to this social group, how we relate with the environment. I don't know. I mean, I'm myself the one who is always challenging that. I'm vegan since 7 years. I try to lower my consumption. I don't buy stuff from that has to fly around the planet. I go by foot. It's like 5 meters from here to the local market where there are the farmers. They are from the cities. I walk around the city. I mean, there are, and I always try to improve that attitude towards life. And I think right now, maybe yes, just as I said, maybe a great task would be yes, to think to redesign ourselves.
Well, thank you very much, Demian. It was nice and pleasure to talk to you and hear
Thank you
your
to you.
ideas.
Thank you so much.